Hello everyone and thank you for joining me. Today's Omad is Daf 28 of Shevuout Omad A. Let's dive straight in. Even if he had left any amount, it would also be possible for him to dissolve the oath, as he had not yet broken his oath. Rav Ashi answers, if you wish, say that the halacha stated by Rava is referring to a case where he took an oath, saying, I will not eat this loaf, and if you wish, say that it is referring to a case where he took an oath, saying, I will not eat it. The Gemara elaborates, if you wish, say that the halacha stated by Rav is referring to a case where he took an oath, saying, I will not eat this loaf, since the request for dissolution is still effective, even for the last olive bulk of the loaf, and effective also for the first olive bulk. Migodim hanya le she'el v'chulu. Since the request for dissolution is effective, etc., since he has not yet eaten the last olive bulk as yet, the oath still applies to something, and he can still request that the oath be dissolved. Since dissolution is the retroactive cancellation of the oath, it serves to uproot the entire oath, including the prohibition with regard to what he had already ate. And if you were to say that the halacha stated by Rava is referring to a case where he took an oath, saying, I will not eat it, if he left an olive bulk, it might indicate that although one violates the oath only if he eats the entire loaf, a piece smaller than an olive bulk is not considered of sufficient significance to warrant dissolving the oath, being migash. The Ramban and his students see this interpretation as inconsistent. If the oath taker has not violated the oath, why should he not be able to have it dissolved? The prohibition is at all still extant. They conclude that according to Rav Ashi, consuming the whole loaf but leaving less than an olive bulk is considered to be a violation of the oath. That is why the oath can no longer be dissolved. Their version of the Gemara text reads simply, an olive bulk is significant, and if there is not an olive bulk left, it is not significant. The Ramban cites support for his understanding from the Jewish Talmud, where this question is connected to the dispute between Rabbi Akiva and the rabbis at the beginning of this chapter with regard to whether an oath not to eat applies to an amount less than an olive bulk. That is a sufficiently significant quantity for which to request dissolution of the oath. Oh, I've already said that footnote. So the other footnote, Isha Shiyer Kazayas. If we left an olive bulk, if one said with regard to a loaf of bread, on my oath I will not eat it, he's not liable unless he consumes the entire loaf. Nevertheless, it's prohibited for him to eat any portion of it. If less than an olive bulk remains, he's liable as though he's eating the entire loaf. This rule is in accordance with the opinion of Rava, and that's in the Beis Yosef cited in the Ramban. Some authorities rule that one is not liable unless he eats the entire loaf, and that's the Torah Yodei 238, Shulchan Aruch Yodei 238:10, Shach, and Ber Hagua there. But if he did not leave that much, it is not a sufficiently significant quantity for which to request dissolution of the oath. Rava assumes that once one has eaten the entire loaf, it is no longer possible to dissolve the oath. The Gemara raises an objection to this from a Braita with regard to one who took 2 vows of Nazirite. In a case of one who took 2 vows of Nazirite and concluded his first term, he can still have his vow dissolved by halakha authority even after he has brought his atonement offering and shaved his hair. In that case, the second vow is considered to have been fulfilled already, since the first vow was uprooted entirely when it was dissolved. This ruling is according to the opinion of Rav Ashi. 3:10. And counted the first term and separated an offering for it, and afterward requested and received dissolution of the first vow from halakha authority. The second term was counted for him in observance of the first term, and he is not required to be a Nazirite further. Although the first term of Nazirite was entirely finished, halakha authority could still dissolve the vow. The Gemara answers, what are we dealing with here? We are dealing with a case where he has not yet atoned, i.e. he has not yet brought the offerings that one brings at the conclusion of Nazirite. The Gemara asks, but isn't it taught in a Braita that one can still dissolve his vow of Nazirite after he has atoned? The Gemara answers, it is a case where he brought his offerings but has not yet shaved his hair, and this is according to the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, who says, shaving is indispensable to the completion of Nazirite. The Gemara asks, but isn't it taught in a Braita that one can still dissolve his vow of Nazirite after he has shaved? Rav Ashi said, are you comparing Nazirite to oaths? What caused the second Nazirite to not take effect until now? It was the first Nazirite, and once it had been dissolved, it is no longer a factor. So what does that mean? Rishon she'ena. First knowledge and is no longer fact. It's difficult to see how this statement answers Rashi's question. Some understand Rashi's explanation of the Gemara to be that when one expresses regret with regard to the Nazarite, he uproots it entirely. Despite this, it still remains in existence as a vow, and then he continues to prevent the second knowledge from coming into effect until the first vow is dissolved. With regard to the oath, that is not the case. Since once the oath has been consumed there is nothing to which the oath applies. Tosfos Harosh points out that it is not the regret that uproots the vow, but rather the Torah scholars' dissolution of the vow. He therefore prefers the explanation of the Midrash that since the first Nazir is going to be dissolved, it is as if the second Nazir was in place all along, and the first Nazir had not yet occurred, and it is for that reason that it may be dissolved. The same cannot be said for the further prohibiting the loaf of bread, since the loaf no longer exists. Since the observance of the Nazirite term is the same whether it is counted for the second or the first term of Nazirite can be regarded as not yet having started, and that is why it can be dissolved. By contrast, in the case of an oath, once he ate the loaf, his oath is no longer extant at all. And Meimama, in contrast to the opinion of Rava, even if he ate the entire loaf, even if he ate the entire loaf, one who takes an oath on an utterance with regard to the future and violates his oath, e.g. he can take an oath that he will not eat this bread and he eats it, can still have his oath dissolved by halacha authority, provided he has not yet brought an offering for an unwitting violation or received lashes for an intentional violation. If he does have the oath dissolved, he then exempt from bringing the offering or receiving lashes. He can even have the oath dissolved if he has already been tied to the stake in order to be flogged. This ruling is according to the opinion of a Meimah. And that's Navam Sefer Flor Hilchot Shevuout 6:18. He may still request a dissolution of the oath. If he ate it unwittingly, i.e. he forgot the oath, it is a situation where he has not yet brought an offering, he is liable to bring. If he ate unwittingly and not yet brought the offering. In other words, his oath is still extant because it is still incumbent upon him to bring an offering or to receive lashes. That is the reason he can still request dissolution of the oath, says Rashi. Rather, by contrast, holds the offering or the punishment for taking the oath falsely are not part of the oath, and that the oath can be considered extant only if the prohibition itself is still in force in some way. And that's Rabbi Yosef Dov Soloveitchik. If he ate it intentionally, it's a situation where he has not yet received lashes. But if he was already tied to the stake in order to receive lashes, he can no longer request that it be dissolved in accordance to the opinion of Shmuel. As Shmuel says, if one had already been tied to the stake, if one had already been tied to the stake, etc., one had been tied to the stake in order to be flogged and escape before the flogging ensued, is exempt from receiving further lashes. This ruling is according to the opinion of Shmuel. That's the Rambam Sefer Shoftim Hilchot Sanhedrin 17:6. In order to receive lashes, and he ran away from the court and escaped, he is then from receiving lashes, as being tied to the stake is regarded as the beginning of receiving the lashes. Once he has escaped, he is treated as though he were already flogged. The Gemara rejects this, and that is not so. Even if he was tied to the stake, he can still have the oath dissolved. There, with regard to his exemption from receiving lashes after he ran away, the original flogging is over, and no need to initiate a new one. Here, with regard to dissolving the oath, he did not run, and since he is still subject to lashes, he can still have his oath dissolved. Rava says, if one says, on my oath I will not eat that loaf, if I eat this one, so what's the footnote? He ate the first etc. See the Bor HaGra for a summary of the two textual variations of this discussion, as well as different interpretations of it in the commentaries. According to Rashi, the first oath is one whose consumption was a condition for the oath taking effect, and the second oath is the one forbidden by the oath. Rashi holds that the oath takes effect at the moment he eats either one of the loaves. Therefore, if he initially ate either loaf unwittingly, while unaware of the oath does not take effect at all because it is considered an accidental oath. It is only if he initially ate either loaf while aware of his conditional oath, and the oath can take effect. In this case, if he first ate the loaf, whose consumption is a condition, and then unwittingly ate the loaf that is the object of the oath, he brings an offering for having violated his oath unwittingly. If he intentionally and with forewarning ate the loaf that is the object of the oath, he's liable to receive lashes. If he first ate the loaf that is the object of the oath, and then unwittingly consumed the loaf whose eating is the condition, he does not bring an offering, since his eating of the forbidden loaf was not yet prohibited when he ate it. Tosfos disagree, with Rashi explain that it is one's intention when he eats the loaf whose consumption is a condition that is significant. If he eats the loaf whose consumption is a condition, while unaware that doing so would be the fulfillment of the condition, the oath never takes effect, because his lack of awareness that he is fulfilling the condition renders it an accidental oath, for which one is not liable. If he eats the loaf whose consumption is a condition while aware of what he is doing, even if he had unwittingly eaten the loaf that is the object of his oath first, he is liable to bring an offering, even though the prohibition went into effect retroactively. Rabbeinu Tam and the Ramban explain that the first loaf means he ate the first loaf, that the first loaf means the first loaf he ate, regardless of whether it was the object of his oath or the loaf whose consumption is the condition. Accordingly, if he first unwittingly ate the loaf whose consumption is a condition, he is not liable, even if he ate the object of his oath intentionally, as the oath is an accidental oath which does not take effect. If he unwittingly first ate the loaf object of his oath, and then intentionally ate the loaf whose consumption is a condition, he is not liable. If he intentionally first ate the loaf whose consumption is a condition, and then unwittingly ate the object of his oath, he is liable to bring an offering for the unwitting violation of his oath. If he intentionally first ate the object of his oath, and then unwittingly ate the loaf whose consumption is a condition, he is liable to bring an offering, as when he ate the object of his oath, he thought that it was permitted, since he did not at the time intend to eat the other loaf. If he intentionally first ate the object of his oath, and then intentionally ate the loaf whose consumption is a condition, he retroactively rendered the first loaf forbidden, and its consumption an unwitting violation. Rabbeinu Hananel's understanding is based on different versions of the text, where Rava's statement is that if one ate the first loaf unwittingly and the second one intentionally, he is liable, but if he ate the first one intentionally and the second one unwittingly, he is exempt. Rabbeinu Hananel understands the first loaf to mean the object of his oath, and the second loaf to mean the loaf whose consumption is a condition. The result is that his opinion is identical to that of Tosfot, although stemming from a different text, see the Midrash. I.e., the loaf whose consumption was a condition for the oath taking effect unwittingly and ate the second loaf intentionally, he is exempt. Since he fulfilled the condition unintentionally, the oath does not take effect, as it was without full intent. But if he ate the first intentionally, knowing that if he eats it, it will be prohibited for him to eat the other loaf, and then ate the second unwittingly, he is liable to be an offering for breaking his oath unwittingly. If he ate them both unwittingly, he is exempt, as the oath does not take effect when he fulfills the condition unwittingly. Shetehen b'shogeg. According to Rashi, since he ate the first loaf unwittingly, the oath does not go into effect, as the oath is considered accidental. According to Tosfot, the Rabbeinu Tam and the Ramban, since he unwittingly ate the loaf whose consumption is the condition, the oath is accidental. According to the Midrash, one is liable to receive lashes when he acted intentionally. Thank you for listening, and wish you all the best. Bye.